The air on Callisto 6 always smelled like copper and ozone, a lingering reminder of the ancient Ogeron technology that still pulsed beneath its cratered surface. How het eat? 8-year-old boys weren't meant to be cooped up in research colonies with nothing but humming machines and adults too busy to play. That's why he'd made a habit of slipping away whenever his mother was buried in her research about the extinct civilization. Theo, his mother's voice echoed down the corridor. Where are you? You know you're not supposed to wander. But Theo was already gone, racing through the twisted metal corridors of the human settlement, past the boundary markers, and into the forbidden ruins. The Ogeron structures were unlike anything built by human hands. Impossible geometries of light-absorbing metal and crystalline growths that seemed to respond to thought rather than touch. Warning signs were posted everywhere. Restricted area. Unstable ruins. Authorized personnel only. Theo considered himself very authorized. It was during one of these forbidden explorations that he first met her. He'd been climbing an impossibly twisted spire when suddenly the metal beneath his hands had hummed to life. The structure rotated like a massive key, unlocking something ancient, and Theo tumbled through an opening that hadn't been there seconds before. He landed with a thud in a chamber filled with soft blue light. And there she was. At first, he thought she might be a hologram. Her skin was the color of twilight, with small points of light that seemed to glow beneath the surface, like stars embedded in deep space. Her eyes were entirely silver, without pupils, and her hair floated around her head, as though underwater, despite the normal gravity. "You're not supposed to be here," she said, her voice musical and strange. Theo brushed dust from his knees. "Neither are you, probably." The alien girl tilted her head, studying him. "I am Nyx. I am Vayani. We are the caretakers of Ogeron knowledge. I'm Theo. I'm human. I'm Bord." He extended his hand the way his mother had taught him to do when meeting someone new. After a moment's hesitation, Nyx touched his hand with hers, her skin cool but not unpleasant. "You are small for a human." "I'm 8. That's perfectly normal." "How old are you?" "By your counting, 11 rotations." Theo brightened. "So you're a kid too. Do you want to play?" "I brought marbles." He dug into his pocket and produced a small velvet bag. Nyx looked confused but curious. "Play? I have duties." The elders would not approve of interaction with outsiders. "The elders aren't here, though." Theo grinned, displaying a gap where he'd recently lost a tooth. "Just for a little while? I've never met an alien kid before." Something in Nyx's face softened. She glanced at the ornate door behind her, then back to Theo. Perhaps a small deviation from protocol would be acceptable for cultural exchange purposes. And so began their secret friendship. Every few days, when Theo could slip away, they would meet in the hidden chamber. He taught her Earth games. She showed him how to make the dormant Ogeron technology flicker with light. Nyx explained that her people had found this moon centuries ago and had committed themselves to protecting the Ogeron legacy, living in secret among the ruins, studying their knowledge. On their 5th meeting, Theo brought her a gift, a small robot toy he'd built from spare parts. "So you won't forget me when I go," he explained. His mother's research stint was almost over, and they'd be leaving Callisto 6 soon. Nyx's star-flecked face grew solemn. "Forgetting is not possible for Vayani. Our memories are perfect. Even better. How et golim? Because I'm going to come back when I'm grown up." Nyx tilted her head. "Why would you return?" "To marry you, obviously," Theo stated matter-of-factly. "You're the most interesting person I've ever met, and Mom says you should marry someone interesting." Nyx's lights pulsed in what Theo had come to recognize as amusement. "Humans are strange. Such declarations are not common among my kind." "Well, it's a promise." Theo stuck out his pinky finger. "This is how humans make serious promises. It's called a pinky promise." Nyx cautiously extended her own slender finger, and Theo linked them together. "I, Theo Zhang, promise to come back and marry you when I grow up," he declared with the absolute certainty only an 8-year-old could muster. "Your customs are peculiar," Nyx said, but there was warmth in her voice. "I will remember this promise, Theo Zhang." 2 days later, when Theo returned to their meeting spot, Nix was gone. The chamber was silent, the blue light dimmed to near darkness. He called her name, searched every corner, but found nothing except a small crystal that pulsed faintly with inner light. He pocketed it, not knowing then how important that tiny shard would become. The next day, his mother announced they were leaving Callisto, 6 ahead of schedule. Something about diplomatic complications and unauthorized alien contact. Theo said nothing about his friend, but as their transport lifted off, he pressed his face to the viewport, watching the ruins recede, the crystal clutched tightly in his hand. 15 years passed. The interior of the Galloping was a masterpiece of organized chaos. Every surface was covered with tools, spare parts, or strange artifacts collected from a dozen worlds. In the center of this mechanical hurricane sat Theo, now 23, hunched over a workbench, his dark hair falling over focused eyes as he manipulated a complex device. "Scan complete," announced a cheerful voice from a modified toaster on the counter. No life signs detected, just the usual collection of space dust and your questionable life choices. "Thanks, Crumb," Theo muttered, not looking up from his work. The AI had started as an experiment during his second year at the Interstellar Engineering Academy before he dropped out. Now, it was his only consistent companion as he drifted from job to job across the galaxy, always searching for something he couldn't quite explain to others. "You realize," Crumb continued, "that we're currently in a restricted sector. The Human Federation has designated the entire Ogeron expanse as off-limits." "I'm aware." Theo carefully adjusted the device, a signal amplifier built from modified Ogeron tech and his own improvised engineering. For years, he'd been searching for any trace of the Vayani, using the crystal from his childhood as a reference point. Most people thought he was chasing fairy tales. The Vayani were considered mythical by most of the scientific community, despite his mother's insistence they had made contact during that long-ago expedition. "Just making sure," Crumb replied. "Given your history of not caring about trivial details like laws or physics, I thought a reminder was in order." Theo was about to reply when the amplifier suddenly pulsed with light. The same soft blue he remembered from 15 years ago. The scanning console beeped urgently as coordinates appeared on the screen. "That's unexpected," Crumb said. Theo stared at the coordinates. After years of nothing, of being dismissed as delusional, of following the faintest rumors across star systems, there it was, a signal, and embedded within it, a name, Nix. "Set course," Theo said, his voice barely above a whisper, "for the mysterious signal being broadcast from the heart of a restricted zone that could get us impounded, imprisoned, or impressively dead. That course, that's the one." Crumb's lights flickered in what passed for an AI sigh. Status update. Still working for a human with minimal survival instincts. The Galloping was a capable ship for its size, but the Ogeron expanse was notorious for swallowing vessels whole. Theo needed help. Specialized help that could navigate the anomalies that protected the ancient ruins from intruders. That meant a visit to the Verdant Station, home to the most unusual research vessel in the quadrant. The Flora's intention looked less like a ship and more like a mobile forest. Its hull was composed of living material, bark and synthetic cellulose, woven with metallic fibers that glinted in the station lights. Standing before its entry port, Theo felt dwarfed by the organic vessel. "Permission to come aboard?" he called. A section of the hull peeled back like opening petals, revealing a verdant interior. "Permission granted," rumbled a deep voice that seemed to emanate from the ship itself. "Though I question the wisdom of your visit, Theo Zhang." Theo stepped inside, the hull closing behind him. The interior was a marvel of bioengineering, a self-sustaining ecosystem that served as both life support and propulsion system. At the center grew an enormous oak tree, its branches extending throughout the ship, leaves shimmering with data displays. "Hello, Barkley," Theo said, addressing the tree. "You're looking leafy." The tree's bark shifted in patterns that somehow conveyed exasperation. "Your attempt at botanical humor remains suboptimal. Why have you sought me out?" Theo pulled out a data chip containing the signal coordinates. I need passage through the Ogeron expanse. Barclay's leaves rustled aggressively. The expanse is forbidden for good reason. Reality itself bends there. Time flows. Inconsistently. I know the risks. You know the theory, the sentient tree corrected. You do not know the experience. Theo approached, placing a hand against Barclay's trunk. 15 years ago, I made a promise to someone. I intend to keep it. Barclay was silent for a long moment, data flowing through his leaves like wind. Finally, he spoke. A promise is a seed. Once planted, it must either grow or die. I have never seen a human so stubbornly water a single seed for so long. The tree's branches shifted, creating a pathway deeper into the ship. We depart in 3 hours. Prepare yourself as best you can, though no preparation will be sufficient. The journey through the Ogeron expanse defied description. Space itself seemed to fold and unfold around the floor's intention, time stretching and compressing like taffy. Theo spent most of the transit in a state between consciousness and dreaming, his mind filled with fragments of memories he wasn't sure were his own. When they emerged on the other side, Barclay was uncharacteristically quiet, his leaves drooping with exhaustion. The coordinates had led them to an unmarked planet orbiting a binary star system, one sun golden, the other a deep purple that cast an eternal twilight across the world below. I can take you no further, Barclay finally said. This atmosphere is incompatible with my systems. Thank you, Theo said, gathering his gear. I'll find my own way back. That, Barclay noted, is astronomically unlikely. Theo piloted a small shuttle down to the surface, following the signal to what appeared to be an ancient space station partially buried in crystalline mountains. The architecture was unmistakably Ogeron, but refined, as though someone had been maintaining and improving it for centuries. Landing on a designated platform, Theo stepped out into air that smelled of cinnamon and electricity. The gravity was lighter than he was accustomed to, making each step feel like the beginning of a leap. He approached the station's entrance, heart hammering in his chest. The doors opened before he could search for a mechanism. Standing in the entryway was a figure that stopped him in his tracks. She was taller than he remembered, her twilight skin now deeper, the stars beneath brighter and more numerous. Her silver eyes regarded him with an unreadable expression, and her floating hair had been styled into elaborate patterns that seemed to shift with her thoughts. She wore formal attire, something between armor and ceremonial robes. Nyx, Theo breathed, barely able to believe that after 15 years of searching, she was actually standing before him. Diplomatic envoy Zhang, she replied formally. I did not expect the Human Federation to send a representative. Theo blinked in confusion. I'm not. I'm here on my own. I came to find you. Something flickered across her face, surprise, perhaps, or disbelief. For what purpose would an individual undertake such a dangerous journey? Theo reached into his pocket and pulled out the crystal she had left behind all those years ago. It pulsed brightly in his palm, resonating with the similar lights beneath her skin. I made a promise, he said simply. Nyx's composure faltered for just a moment. You were a child. I was. I'm not anymore. He took a step closer. You disappeared without saying goodbye. The elders discovered our meetings. They deemed it too dangerous to maintain contact with humans at that juncture. We relocated our sanctuary. Her voice was controlled, diplomatic, but Theo could hear something else beneath it, a tension, an uncertainty. May I come in? It's been a long trip, and I have a feeling we have a lot to talk about. After a moment's hesitation, Nyx stepped aside, gesturing for him to enter. The interior of the station was a breathtaking blend of Ogeron technology and what must be Vayani aesthetics. Curves of metal and crystal that seemed to sing softly as he passed, lighting that responded to their presence, surfaces that shifted between solid and translucent. You have violated numerous regulations to reach this place, Nyx said as she led him to what appeared to be a receiving room. The Ogeron expanse is forbidden territory. Yeah, I get that a lot. Theo lowered himself onto a chair that molded to his form. It wasn't easy to find you. The crystal helped. It carried a frequency I could track once I built the right equipment. But I wouldn't have needed to go to such extremes if you had just said goodbye. Nyx remained standing, her posture rigid. It was not my choice. The elders. I'm not blaming you, Theo interrupted gently. I just want you to understand why I'm here. Why I had to come. Because of a childish promise? A pinky swear? There was an edge to her voice now. Partially, yes. Theo leaned forward. But also because in all the years since, I've never met anyone who fascinated me the way you did. I've traveled to 27 planets, worked 16 different jobs, met thousands of beings, and I kept wondering where you were, what you were doing. If you ever thought about the weird human kid who interrupted your duties. Something in Nyx's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Your intrusion was memorable. High praise, Theo smiled. What happened after you left Callisto 6? Where did the Vayani go? Nyx hesitated, then finally took a seat across from him. We relocated to this sanctuary. It is one of the last intact Ogeron outposts in the galaxy. The Elders believe it would be safer, further from human expansion. She gestured to her formal attire. I was trained as a diplomatic envoy to monitor other civilizations from a distance and report to the Council. So you've been watching us? All this time, among others, yes. A faint smile touched her lips. Humans are chaotic, unpredictable. The Council finds your species concerning. But you don't. Nyx's starlight freckles pulsed. I find humans interesting, particularly certain specimens who disregard sensible barriers and protocols. Before Theo could respond, an alarm chimed softly. Nyx stood immediately, her expression becoming formal once more. The Council has detected your presence. They wish to evaluate you. That sounds ominous, Theo remarked, rising to his feet. Am I in trouble? The Council does not conceptualize situations in terms of trouble, Nyx replied, leading him toward a different section of the station. But your unauthorized presence here is unprecedented. There will be questions. The chamber she led him to was vast, with a ceiling that seemed to open directly into space, though Theo knew they were inside the mountain. In the center was a raised platform surrounded by 7 pillars of light, each a different color, each pulsing with its own rhythm. The Ogeron remnants, Nyx whispered, her voice filled with reverence. The last fragments of Ogeron consciousness preserved by my people for millennia. The lights intensified as Theo stepped onto the platform. Nyx at his side. He felt a presence. 7 presences touching his mind, sifting through his thoughts with the gentleness of sunlight through leaves. They're evaluating your intentions, Nyx explained quietly. Be honest. They will know if you are not. The lights pulsed in complex patterns, and Theo heard Nyx responding in a language that sounded like crystalline wind chimes. Her expression grew increasingly concerned as the exchange continued. What's happening? Theo asked. They are confused by your presence, Nyx replied. Your journey here defies probability calculations. They are questioning your motivation. The central light, a deep blue pillar, flared suddenly, and Theo felt a direct question form in his mind. Why have you come to this place, Theo Zhang? Theo took a deep breath. 15 years ago, I made a promise to Nyx. I promised I would return when I grew up. I've spent years searching for her, for the Vayani. I built specialized equipment, dropped out of the academy, worked odd jobs across the galaxy to fund my search. I violated Federation law and risked my life traveling through the expanse. He glanced at Nyx. I told you, I'm very stubborn and mildly delusional. To his surprise, Nyx laughed, a sound like distant bells that he hadn't heard since they were children. The lights around them flickered rapidly, and the pressure in his mind intensified. Such devotion to an illogical cause is incomprehensible, the blue light communicated. Maybe to you, Theo replied, but humans are good at being illogical. Sometimes our best discoveries come from pursuing the improbable. The lights conferred amongst themselves, patterns shifting rapidly. They are deliberating, Nyx whispered. Your presence here creates complications. Story of my life, Theo muttered. After what seemed like an eternity, the lights pulsed in unison, and Theo felt their decision forming in his mind. The human may remain conditionally. He must contribute value. He must learn our ways. He must prove his presence benefits rather than endangers. The lights dimmed, and Nyx exhaled sharply. They have granted you temporary sanctuary. This is unprecedented. Does that mean I can stay? Theo asked. For now. Nyx's silver eyes studied him. The question remains, what exactly did you expect to happen when you found me, Theo Zhang? Did you truly believe a childhood promise would be fulfilled? How soon? Honestly, I didn't plan that far ahead. I just knew I had to find you, to see you again. He paused. The marriage proposal of an 8-year-old probably doesn't hold much weight, but the feeling behind it, the connection I felt with you, that was real. Nyx was silent for a long moment. You have changed, she finally said. So have you. Yes. She took a step closer to him. Yet somehow, I still recognize the determined child who invaded my sanctuary with marbles and impossible ideas. How's my... And I still see the girl who taught me how to make ancient tech glow with just a thought. Something shifted between them, a tension breaking, a wall coming down. Nyx reached out and, very carefully, took his hand in hers. Welcome to Sanctuary, Theo Zhang. Your education begins tomorrow. The next several months were a blur of new experiences. Theo learned to navigate the Vayani world, a delicate balance of ancient protocols and vibrant life hidden from the wider galaxy. He discovered that the Vayani were not merely caretakers of Ojra knowledge, but had integrated it into their civilization, becoming something new in the process. His engineering skills proved unexpectedly valuable. The Ojran technology responded to him in ways that surprised even the Vayani elders, as though something in his uniquely human approach resonated with the ancient systems. In return, Nyx taught him the basics of Vayani culture. She showed him how to pilot the organic gliders that soared through the crystalline canyons, how to communicate with the light entities that dwelled in the deeper chambers, and how to read the complex symbols that recorded Ojran knowledge. Your pronunciation is atrocious, she informed him after a particularly difficult language lesson, but there was affection in her voice. The universe occasionally permits improbability for reasons beyond our comprehension. Or perhaps, Theo suggested, some promises are meant to be kept, no matter how childish they seem. As the seasons changed on the sanctuary world, Theo's status evolved from conditional guest to recognized contributor. The Council of Lights had extended his stay indefinitely, citing his unique approach to Ojran technology and the positive cultural exchange he fostered. In truth, Theo suspected they were simply fascinated by the unlikely bond between him and Nyx, a case study in cross-species connection that defied their predictive models. One evening, as crimson auroras danced across the sky, Theo put the finishing touches on a project he'd been working on for weeks. 2 small objects gleamed on his workbench, rings crafted with painstaking precision. The first was formed from a thread of condensed Ojran light, stabilized within a matrix of living metal, a technique he'd learned from the Vayani crafters. It pulsed with the same rhythm as the stars beneath Nyx's skin. The second was fashioned from a piece of the Galloping's hull, mixed with fragments of the crystal that had led him to Nyx. Simple, imperfect, unmistakably human in its construction. Crumb hovered nearby, its sensors focused on the rings. Status update. You appear to be engaging in a traditional human pair bonding ritual. Probability of rejection. Calculating. Recalculating. Insufficient data. Human Vayani relationships have limited precedent. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Theo muttered, carefully placing the rings in a small container carved from sanctuary wood. For what it's worth, the AI added, its tone softening, my observation subroutines indicate a 97.3% probability that she experiences the human emotion categorized as love when interacting with you. How galang set up, supit. That's oddly supportive coming from you, Chrome. Don't get used to it. I'm still cataloging your many questionable decisions for future reference. That night, Theo and Nyx walked along the edge of the crystal lake, its surface reflecting the twin moons in fractal patterns. They had developed a routine in recent months. Work during the day, evenings spent sharing their worlds with each other. Theo told stories of Earth and his travels. Nyx explained Vayani philosophy and history. "There's something I want to ask you," Theo said as they reached a small alcove where the crystals formed a natural shelter. Nyx turned to him, her silver eyes curious. "You seem uncharacteristically nervous." "Yeah, well," Theo took a deep breath. 15 years ago, an extremely confident 8-year-old boy promised to marry you someday. It was presumptuous and ridiculous and completely sincere. He took the container from his pocket, opening it to reveal the 2 rings. "I'm slightly less confident now, but infinitely more certain about how I feel." Nyx's lights pulsed rapidly as she stared at the rings. "I know Vayani don't have marriage exactly," Theo continued, "but you have partnership bonds, lifelong commitments. I like to create something new with you. Not quite human, not quite Vayani, but entirely us." He held the container out to her. "Nyx of the Vayani, guardian of Ogeron knowledge, the most fascinating person in the galaxy. Will you marry me?" For a long moment, Nyx was utterly still, even her floating hair seeming to pause in its constant motion. Then, very slowly, she reached for the ring crafted from the Galloping's hull. "This one," she said softly, "represents you. Your journey. Your determination." "Yes." She took the ring of Ogeron light. "And this one represents me. My heritage. My duty." Theo nodded, hardly daring to breathe. Nyx held both rings, studying them in the moonlight. Neither would exist without the other. The light would never have been captured without your human innovation. The metal would never have found purpose without Vayani techniques. She looked up at him, her eyes shimmering. "They're like us. Improbable, complementary, beautiful in their unlikelihood." She took his hand and placed the light ring in his palm. In Vayani tradition, the one who proposes partnership does not give the token. They create it, then exchange it. Each wears the essence of the other. She closed his fingers around the ring. "I accept your proposal, Theo Zhang. I will wear your journey as you wear my light." Relief and joy washed over Theo's face. That's perfect, actually. Better than my plan." Nyx smiled, the stars beneath her skin blazing brighter than he'd ever seen. "Your plans often require adjustment. It is part of your charm." Under the twin moons, they exchanged the rings, Theo placing the light ring on Nyx's finger, watching as it adjusted perfectly to her form. Nyx sliding the metal ring onto his hand, where it sat solid and comforting. "What happens now?" Theo asked, looking at their joined hands. "Now, Nyx replied, "we create something new, something neither of our peoples has seen before." She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his in the gesture that had become their own private form of intimacy. "We become a bridge between worlds." In the sanctuary's central chamber, beneath the great dome that opened to the stars, representatives of the Vayani gathered to witness the union. The Council of Lights hovered at the perimeter, their colors shifting in patterns that Theo had learned to recognize as curiosity and cautious approval. Barclay had made the journey back through the expanse to attend, his leaves adorned with ceremonial bioluminescent spores that drifted through the air like fireflies. Even Crumb had received an upgrade for the occasion, its toaster form now engraved with Ogeron symbols of continuity and partnership. The ceremony was neither human nor Vayani, but something created specifically for them. They spoke vows in both languages, shared symbolic elements from both cultures, and completed the ritual by adding their genetic signatures to the sanctuary's living record, the first human-Vayani union ever documented. As the celebration continued around them, Theo and Nyx slipped away to the observation platform where they had first confessed their feelings. "So," Theo said, leaning against the railing, "what's next for us? Do we stay here? Try to visit Earth? Start a diplomatic revolution?" Nyx's hair floated thoughtfully around her face. "The Council believes our union could serve as a model for future interactions between our peoples. A controlled introduction, rather than the chaos they have always feared. Ambassadors of improbability," Theo grinned. "I like it. It will not be easy," Nyx cautioned. There will be resistance from both sides. Fear, misunderstanding. When has anything about us been easy? Theo took her hand, feeling the warm pulse of the ring against his skin. We'll figure out, together. As the binary suns began to rise, painting the crystal landscape in gold and purple light, Crumb hovered nearby, recording the moment for posterity. Status update. The AI commented to no one in particular. No longer single. Marginally less idiotic. Unusually happy. How lauget pooling nit girl. You know, when I was 8, I thought promises were simple things. You make them, you keep them, end of story. And now? Nyx asked. Now I know better. A promise isn't just something you make once and fulfill. It's something you choose again and again every day. He looked at the ring on his finger, then at the one on hers. This promise, us. I choose it today, tomorrow, and all the days after that. Nyx's silver eyes reflected the rising suns. As do I, Theo Zhang. As do I. Sometimes the most improbable paths are the ones most worth following. A childish promise made in a hidden chamber on a forgotten moon had become the compass that guided Theo's entire life. Not because he was obligated to keep it, but because he recognized the truth at its core. In a universe of infinite possibilities, finding your way back to the one soul that complements your own might seem impossible. But for those stubborn enough to try, determined enough to search, and sincere enough to persist when all logic says to give up, sometimes the universe makes space for improbability. And in that space, something new and beautiful can grow.